My apologies if jet lag in any way hampers my appearance this evening. Gayatri's jet lagged too, and she's had to look after 5 of my children all day instead of having a brief nap like I was able to do. And forgive us this rudimentary studio space. It's like Milton Keynes on steroids for regular listeners, or at least on plant-based supplements. But we'll do better come Wednesday with proper studio space, I hope. But the truth is, the pressing issues of this day are so pressing that it doesn't feel much like Christmas at all. The danger of war is stalking the globe, stalking continent after continent. And the reason for it, the overwhelming reason for it, is the political degeneracy of the United States of America. And that political degeneracy is on full, stark view this weekend. I'm talking about the fact that the entire political and media class, the yapping dogs of the media chorus who shadow every footstep and write every word without contradiction of their political masters, are this weekend sunk in disgrace. Sunk in the disgrace of their unbelievable attachment to a fraudster, a con man, a spy, a blackmailer, a man who was working for multiple intelligence agencies to gather as much video material of the debased and debauched sexual tastes and actions of the American political class as possible, the better to blackmail them, to extort them for political favours and for political direction later. The whole political class, and the efforts by Donald Trump and his administration to somehow cloak his degrading and degraded relationship with Jeffrey Epstein for decades, not when they were single playboys together in New York. They weren't single and they weren't playboys. They were sordid sexual exploiters of tiny little girls who turn out from the photographs to have been even younger than we had earlier anticipated. The efforts of Donald Trump to cloak his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein by splodges of black ink in redaction. I mean, I was looking at that famous cover of the Beatles walking across that zebra crossing in Abbey Road. That's what this looks like, the cover of the Beatles album, Abbey Road. This looks ridiculous. And of course it is ridiculous. And every redaction merely makes matters worse for those names that have been hidden by the redaction. And it's now being claimed by the Trump administration, which has variously claimed that the Epstein affair was such a gigantic scandal that you had to elect Donald Trump to get to the bottom of it. He was going to drain the swamp, you'll remember. And then when, perhaps to him, unexpectedly, actually allowed to win an election, to come back as president again, he realized that actually if he did drain the swamp, he'd be sending himself down the plug hole too, because there can be few, maybe one or two, maybe Peter Mandelson, maybe Alan Dershowitz, but other than them, there can be few political figures still active and influential in the world today with a closer relationship to this pervert, this degenerate Jeffrey Epstein than Donald Trump. And to think that you are somehow going to lessen the pressure by accepting, as he had to, with apparent good grace, a decision of the US Congress setting a deadline for the full disclosure of all the Epstein files, only to A, release them looking like a zebra crossing on steroids, and that you were not going to be able to comply with a judgment that was given by the Congress 30 days ago. And the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is now facing impeachment. Donald, this is going to get worse and worse and worse. It's not going to go away because you call it a hoax. It was a hoax a couple of weeks ago. Now it's a national security matter that all these redactions, this blizzard of black ink on white paper is a national security issue. I'll tell you this, Donald. Any nation that needs to protect pedophiles to defend its national security is not a nation that deserves national security. Any country, any state that has to protect all of these senior politicians and media men from the disclosure of their sordid, degenerate behavior is not a political and media class that deserves to exist. And that is surely the problem. Because it's not about red ties or blue ties. Of course not. Bill Clinton, there he is there, lounging in a pool with someone doing God knows what to his cigar as he lies there. Bill Clinton, Dershowitz, Brooks of the New York Times, the liberal elite were all deeply involved with Epstein and taking money for them. Even the so-called leftist Noam Chomsky was on the closest possible terms with Jeffrey Epstein, taking money from him, taking rides on his private jet, unconsciously or maybe surreptitiously channeling Epstein's political views on the Israel-Palestine struggle. In exchange for what, Noam? It's a pity you can't now speak for yourself, but if you can hear, you are in as much disgrace this evening as Bill Clinton and as Alan Dershowitz and all the others involved, Peter Mandelson, Richard Branson, all these people that, Bill Gates. Bill Gates only used to have dinner with Jeffrey Epstein. He had dinner so many times, his wife left him because she couldn't bear what was happening at the dinners. And in the disclosure that we now have, there's Bill Gates with women who are blacked out. And the rules of the game are that the only people being blacked out are victims. So Bill Gates, who were these victims? And while you were in your stentorian way, lecturing the rest of us about COVID, about vaccines, when you were lecturing us about overpopulation, when you were plotting in the WEF anti-population drives, you were in bed, so to speak, with one of the most debased sex criminals ever in the history of the United States. I could go on, but time is of the essence. The fact that red ties, blue ties, New York or California, it all made no difference. Maria Farmer, once of this parish, a great friend of this show, she's changed her telephone number or she'd be on the show tonight. Maria Farmer, in 1999, reported Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein's sordid behavior towards her as a minor to the FBI. And thanks God, because a lot of people said she was crazy, you know. They said it to me, why have you got Maria Farmer on? She's crazy. But she wasn't crazy. She was telling the truth. They said the FBI never got any warning from her at all, but now we have it in black and white and not redacted, in words on paper. Maria Farmer reporting Ghislaine Maxwell more than 25 years ago, reporting Jeffrey Epstein more than 25 years ago for attempted rape of this young girl who had so foolishly, for the sake of her art, she's a wonderful painter, accepted an invitation to go to their ranch in Arizona, but it wasn't paintings or etchings they were interested in. It was her young, nubile, and entirely innocent body. Now, if the FBI had acted in 1999, how many of these victims would now be hale and hearty, instead of suicided, instead of anorexic, instead of suffering from mental illness? How many of these victims and how many of these men would not have been led by Epstein and Maxwell and filmed for the delectation of who knows whom in chanceries, in the headquarters of intelligence organizations thereafter? Well, it's a sorry tale, and it isn't over yet. Every one of these redactions will live to see the light. Every one of these people will live to be disgraced in eternal darkness. Every single one of the intelligence agencies, the CIA and Mossad particularly, but anything that's in the eyes of the CIA and Mossad is in the eyes of MI6 and MI5, of the Australian, New Zealand and Canadian security and intelligence services also. It's a great pity that our security services was not paying more attention, but they were busy, too busy, picking up grandmothers with cardboard placards expressing their opposition to genocide in Palestine, about which I am now going to briefly turn. The Israeli government has just announced 19 new settlements in the West Bank, internationally recognized occupied territory, and internationally recognized nascent political statehood. Palestine statehood. The West Bank and the Gaza Strip are the state of Palestine, so-called, that all these governments in the world, including the British, just recognized at the United Nations a couple of months ago. Now, I'm one of those that's been telling you for years that the West Bank is not capable of sustaining a Palestinian state because there's 800,000 illegal settlers living there already, with all their Jews-only settler roads and their apartheid walls and their crossings. If Mary and Joseph were on a donkey heading from Nazareth to Jerusalem and diverted to Bethlehem today, well, they wouldn't get past first base, if you know what I mean. But Smotrich's announcement today will take the number of settlers to over 1 million, will take the real estate values of these settlements, which are actually cities, shining cities on Palestinian hills, with geysers watering lawns and sprinklers, filling swimming pools and duck ponds, leaving the people of the West Bank with scarce enough water to drink, never mind to irrigate their olive trees, which will in any case, once they fructify, be destroyed by these very same illegal settlers. So when I told you, as I did, and over again, that all of these countries, including Britain, that were recognizing a Palestinian state, were recognizing a chimera, which could not possibly, topographically, demographically, and politically, could not possibly become a Palestinian state. You all told me I was either a dreamer, dreaming as I do of one democratic state between the river and the sea, where all the Jews, all the Muslims, and all the Christians live as equal citizens before the law and under a constitution, with one man, one woman, one vote. Hey, what a dreamer I am! But it was you that was dreaming. It was you that was dreaming that all this flurry of diplomatic balderdash was somehow going to lead to a peaceful resolution of the ancient, now Palestine-Israel conflict. More than 100 years, the Palestinian people have been suffering from this. And it just got worse, much worse. Now, I'll be talking about Epstein. I'll be talking about Gaza and Palestine. I'll be talking about the putative war that Netanyahu is lobbying Donald Trump to back against Iran. But the most pressing of all the international conflicts has to be the one in which Donald Trump, like a drunken sailor, like a drunken pirate, like a brigand, no beard, the pirate, Donald Trump, is swaggering around the Caribbean like a man drunk on rum. He is acting as an utterly lawless brigand, but he's also risking the peace of the world. This is not a little local difficulty over whether America has the right to shoot and kill unknown people because they're in a rubber boat without being able to provide even their names, never mind their pack drill. This is not a little local matter in some obscure corner of Latin America. No. This is threatening the peace of the world because 2 of the 3 tankers that Donald Trump illegally seized today are Chinese oil tankers. I think you can say, in the words of the old song, there may be trouble ahead. And you've come to the right place to hear it analysed. It's the mother of all talk shows, and it's the coolest cat, Galen Nixon, up right after this. Stay tuned.